Okay, apologies in advance if this video isn't all it ought to be, but I'm very, very short on recording time. I want to respond to Friended in a video that he made called Why Do People Hate Atheists? And I do hope that Friended is okay. I watched his video and he sounded, for all the world, like he'd swallowed the bloke that does the voiceovers for video trailers. I do hope that that is not the case. First thing I want to say, just in terms of the video title, Why Do People Hate Atheists? That's such a sort of US bubble sort of thing to say, isn't it? It certainly doesn't apply all across Western Europe that people specifically dislike atheists. I'll flash a couple of statistics up on screen, which I can edit in later on. One of them shows that in the United Kingdom, people are more likely to believe that atheists are moral people than they are less likely to believe that they are moral people. It also shows that within the United Kingdom, that actually the extra trust that is engendered from being an atheist versus being a Christian, even the most mild form of Christianity, the Church of England, when people were asked about that with regard to people like David Cameron, who's part of the Church of England, or Nick Clegg, who was his deputy, who wasn't particularly well liked generally, but asked whether his atheism was a positive or not. Actually, his atheism was seen as more of a positive than David Cameron's religious belief. Okay, so it's not quite as clear-cut as that, and I'll put links to those studies because I know Friended likes evidence, even if he's not always quite so inclined to show the evidence himself. What I wanted to make this video about was something that I've been thinking about with regard to Jonathan Haidt and something that he'd said, and I know that Friended likes to talk about us having idols and replacing supernatural religions and religious deifying the secular individuals rather than religious individuals. And he seems to have something of an intellectual boner for Jonathan Haidt. And I'm working my way through Haidt's book, by the way. But part of what he wrote in his chapter on religion, he repeats it in this speech. So I'll play a clip of the speech, but first let me show you the relevance.
Yes, there are more rational people. Yes, there are more emotional people. But is this deeply hardwired emotional component a creation of religion? Or is religion a result of our psychological wiring? I think many anti-theists foolishly and without evidence believe that a world without religion will be a more rational world.
Okay, so as I said to you in our hangout, yes, I believe it would be. I don't believe that all irrationality would magically disappear. People would still be irrational about things, but I don't think it would be replaced on a one-for-one basis. And one of the things that you brought up during that hangout was Jonathan Haidt talking about these colonies that people had formed, the communes that people had formed, and evaluating religious communes versus non-religious communes, and found that religious communes lasted longer than non-religious communes. One of the interesting things is what Jonathan says with regard to that. He says it in his book and he also says it in this talk. Have a listen.
Within a religious framework, the more you demand, it's things like cutting your hair in a strange way or an unusual way, wearing uncomfortable clothing, cutting off contact with your friends and family, fasting, walking on your knees. I mean, all sorts of stuff which is irrational, maybe painful. Why do it? And if you're in a secular commune and the leader says, now today we're all going to walk a mile on our knees until they're bloody, you would say, why?
Okay, so maybe we are foolishly and without evidence erroneously thinking that if you take religion out the equation, people are less likely to do these irrational things. But seemingly Jonathan Haidt, equally foolishly and without evidence, is arriving at exactly the same conclusion with regard to these communes, because he is saying when you take religion out of the equation, people say, why? Why would I do that? It's not the rational thing to do. You're asking me to do something which is irrational. That does not sit alongside the claims that you are making there. So I think that you have to say at this point, I would like to know whether you think that Jonathan Haidt is wrong about this when he makes these claims, and that these people in these communes, despite the evidence to the contrary, would be equally as likely to perform these irrational acts. Now, I anticipate finally that you could come back to me at this point and say, oh, well, maybe these communes, they're just different self-selected groups. There's a certain percentage of people in our society that are religious-minded, and they're drawn to the religious communes, and the people that aren't religious, they're drawn to these non-religious communes, and so they were always going to be more rational, as if these are somehow fixed percentages within society. Poppycock is what that is. You only have to look at societies around the world to see that that is not true, that these are not fixed things, and that societies can change a huge amount in terms of their irrational thinking in relatively short periods of time, and the irrationality is not replaced on a one-for-one basis as a religion dies, as religion wanes, and even in terms of two religions, right? Even in terms of different religions, some religions lead to a great deal more irrational thinking and irrational behaviour than other religion. So this idea that, wow, we might as well throw our fucking hands up in the air. It doesn't matter what people think. There's going to be the same amount of irrationality in terms of their thinking or behaviour. It's time for you to evidence that, because that's a pretty fucking major claim to make. And none of these sort of general hand-wavings of hypotheses as to how human thinking functions gets you away from the fact that the world evidences that that is not the case, that the difference between different religions and between highly religious societies and irreligious societies evidences that. Jonathan Haidt could pick that out. I don't know why you can't, friend it. Okay, be well. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.